Sean "Diddy" Combs, once a towering figure in American pop culture, is now at the center of one of the most significant celebrity criminal trials in recent history. From his early days as a music mogul to his ventures in fashion and media, Combs built an empire that epitomized success. However, beneath the glitz and glamour, allegations of abuse, manipulation, and criminal activities have surfaced, leading to a federal trial that has captivated the nation. In September 2024, Combs was arrested and indicted in the Southern District of New York on charges including racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation for purposes of prostitution. The charges stem from a series of investigations and testimonies that paint a disturbing picture of abuse and exploitation. One of the most compelling testimonies came from Brianna Bongolan, a close friend of Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Bongolan recounted a harrowing incident from 2016 where Combs allegedly dangled her over a 17th-story balcony and later threw her into garden furniture, resulting in physical injuries. She also described another encounter where Combs told her, "I'm the devil and I could kill you." Cassie Ventura herself testified about the abuse she endured during their 11-year relationship. She detailed instances of physical violence, including an incident where Combs threw a knife at her. Ventura also described how she kept a knife in her apartment door handle for protection after repeated unannounced visits from Combs. People.com. Another significant testimony came from a former personal assistant who testified under the pseudonym Mia. She described years of rape and torment she endured while working closely with Combs, stating that she had been brainwashed during her time with him. The trial has also brought to light Combs' alleged attempts to obstruct justice. A witness testified that he observed Combs personally counting out a $100,000 bribe intended to suppress incriminating hotel video evidence. BusinessInsider.com. As the trial continues, the nation watches closely, grappling with the revelations about a man who once symbolized success and influence in American culture. Multiple testimonies have confirmed that bodyguards and employees didn't just witness abuse, they were often ordered to participate. One of the bodyguards, who testified anonymously, described how he was routinely instructed to retrieve women for Combs, secure hotel rooms, and stand outside while private business was conducted. While some of these employees claim they feared retaliation if they disobeyed, others appeared deeply complicit. In a particularly chilling account, a former security team member admitted to helping coordinate Combs' private parties, many of which involved excessive drug use and coercive sexual acts. These events, labeled freak-offs in court documents, allegedly served as fronts for illegal activity. Witnesses stated that many of the women involved were not only pressured but drugged to ensure their compliance. The music industry's complicity. Combs' status as a music icon shielded him for years. From Bad Boy Records to Sean John Clothing and Ciroc Vodka, his ventures made him a household name and a billionaire. But that fame and power also discouraged scrutiny. Music executives and collaborators now face scrutiny for turning a blind eye. Several former associates have come forward, stating they witnessed troubling behavior but chose silence over confrontation, afraid it would end their careers. "Everyone knew something," said a former producer. "But no one said anything. You didn't cross-puff. You just didn't." There were warning signs as early as the 1990s. Rumors of violent outbursts, controlling behavior in romantic relationships, and abrupt firings for trivial reasons followed Combs for decades. But his financial success and the aura of invincibility around him prevented meaningful consequences until now. Allegations of federal witness intimidation. Federal prosecutors revealed in court that Combs and his legal team attempted to contact potential witnesses. Some of them received calls warning them to think carefully about testifying. Others were offered settlements or business opportunities to remain quiet. While Combs' attorneys deny these claims, the pattern aligns with long-standing accusations of manipulation and power plays. In a bombshell disclosure, a whistleblower from inside Combs' legal defense team submitted evidence that included internal discussions about tracking down accusers and discrediting them. This revelation prompted Judge Kevin Castell to issue a stern warning and tighten witness protection protocols for the remainder of the trial. The surveillance operation. Court records have also confirmed that Combs maintained an extensive surveillance system not just for security, but allegedly to monitor associates, lovers, and rivals. A former IT technician testified that Combs ordered hidden cameras installed in his residences and hotel suites. These recordings, prosecutors allege, were used to blackmail individuals who could expose his activities or refuse sexual advances. Cassie Ventura's testimony mentioned she was once shown video evidence of herself without her knowledge during a private moment. He said it was for security, she recalled. But he used it to threaten me. The media's role, enabler or watchdog? The trial has also placed a spotlight on media complicity. For years, tabloid stories about Diddy centered around lavish parties, celebrity feuds, and romantic relationships. Rarely did investigative outlets probe deeper. When reports of misconduct surfaced, they were often buried beneath PR spin. Only in recent years, spurred by the #MeToo movement and a growing appetite for celebrity accountability, did media coverage shift. Investigative reporters from Rolling Stone, The Guardian, and the Daily Beast began connecting dots and interviewing former employees, eventually prompting federal attention. A Rolling Stone expose published in early 2024 laid the groundwork for the case by documenting years of allegations and identifying recurring patterns of control, retaliation, and abuse. That piece, according to federal sources, helped locate several victims who were previously unwilling to testify. Looking ahead, the question that looms now isn't just about Diddy's guilt or innocence, it's about how he was allowed to operate unchecked for decades. As the trial continues, it has become more than a celebrity courtroom drama. It's a referendum on the culture that elevates powerful men and silences their victims. The Department of Justice has hinted at broader investigations into others within Diddy's orbit, suggesting that this case could spark a ripple effect across the entertainment industry. In a trial that has been both emotionally harrowing and socially explosive, the voices of Diddy's alleged victims have been the most compelling and heart-wrenching elements. One after another, women who once feared retaliation stood up in court to recount stories of physical abuse, coercion, and trauma. Their testimonies have not only shaken the courtroom but have also reignited national conversations about power, fame, and abuse in the entertainment industry. Cassie Ventura's unfiltered truth. Cassie Ventura, once known as a rising star under Diddy's Bad Boy Records and romantically linked to him for over a decade, has provided one of the most detailed and graphic narratives of abuse. In court, Cassie described how their relationship, which began when she was just 19 and he was 37, quickly spiraled into a controlling and violent situation. She testified that Diddy would monitor her phone, isolate her from friends and family, and subject her to mental and physical torment. Perhaps the most explosive part of her testimony came when she described the night in 2018 when Combs allegedly physically assaulted her after an argument. She said he smashed a glass bottle against a wall, cornered her in their bedroom, and threw a dumbbell at her direction. "He didn't care if he killed me," she told the jury, fighting back tears. Cassie later described how she had to crawl out of their shared apartment to find help. Cassie's emotional strength was evident. "I kept silent for too long," she told the court. "But if I don't speak now, someone else might get hurt. Or worse." Mia's story. A staffer's nightmare. Another key testimony came from a former assistant known only as Mia. Working with Combs from 2013 to 2018, Mia said she was not just a staffer. She became a target of manipulation, drugging, and sexual abuse. She testified that Combs would force her to take Molly or cocaine before meetings and social events, and that she was repeatedly raped during trips to Miami and Los Angeles. "He told me I was his possession," she said. "He said everything I had, my clothes, my apartment, my life, came from him and he could take it all away." Mia's voice broke as she recalled contemplating suicide. "He made me believe that I had no value outside of his world." She eventually escaped the situation with the help of a family friend. But her story echoed the chilling pattern of control and dominance that permeated much of Combs' inner circle. Many of the most damning testimonies came from people who were never in the limelight, personal chefs, drivers, and assistants, who witnessed years of unchecked behavior. One housekeeper recounted how Combs would fly into fits of rage, throwing objects at staff and berating them. She also said she had to clean up after wild parties where unconscious women were left alone in hotel suites. "We were told not to talk, not to ask questions, just clean and leave," she said. A former driver stated that he once drove a bruised and crying woman to the emergency room after a night at Combs' Beverly Hills home. He was later paid $5,000 and asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. A chilling pattern of control. Prosecutors are using these testimonies to build a larger narrative. That Sean Combs allegedly created a system of control where victims were groomed, isolated, and threatened. The testimonies paint a portrait of a man who thrived on power and believed his wealth and fame made him untouchable. In his cross-examination, Combs' legal team attempted to discredit the victims, pointing to NDAs, financial settlements, and time delays in reporting. But jurors appeared visibly shaken during several accounts, with some members even wiping away tears as women described years of trauma and silence. The turning point. What sets this trial apart is not only the caliber of the defendant but the sheer volume and consistency of the testimonies. Each witness strengthened the others, describing similar behaviors, phrases, and incidents of violence. Their courage in coming forward, despite potential threats, media scrutiny, and the looming figure of a celebrity once considered untouchable, marks a pivotal moment in the case. As one attorney representing the victims said, this is not just about justice for Cassie or Mia. This is about giving voice to every person who thought their pain didn't matter because the person who hurt them was powerful. Federal prosecutors have meticulously crafted a narrative that portrays Combs as the orchestrator of a criminal enterprise masked by fame. According to their filings, Combs used his business empire, including Bad Boy Entertainment, his real estate holdings, and hospitality events, as a front for trafficking, manipulation, and obstruction of justice. Assistant U.S. Attorney Erica Thompson delivered a scathing opening argument, calling Combs a predator who used his fame and resources to exploit vulnerable women and silence those who stood in his way. The prosecution's strategy has centered on 5 pillars. Testimony of victims. Already, several women have taken the stand to share consistent, corroborated stories of abuse and coercion. Financial evidence. Prosecutors presented bank records showing payments from shell companies to women who later signed NDAs. Surveillance footage. While some key video evidence has mysteriously disappeared, raising questions of obstruction. Other footage confirms Combs' presence at events where misconduct allegedly occurred. Bribery allegations. A key witness testified to receiving cash to make a problem disappear, an attempt, the DOJ alleges, to bury incriminating evidence. Threats and intimidation. Several witnesses stated under oath that Combs or his associates contacted them in the weeks leading up to the trial, offering incentives to stay silent. Each element is designed to demonstrate that Combs wasn't just abusive in isolated incidents, he was running a system designed to conceal the truth. The defense: denial, discredit, deflect. Combs' legal team, led by famed attorney Mark Garagos, has taken an aggressive posture. Their goal: to paint the accusers as opportunists chasing fame and payouts, and to frame the prosecution's case as overreach fueled by the #MeToo era. In a dramatic moment during cross-examination, Garagos questioned Cassie Ventura's credibility by pointing to her earlier financial settlement and asking why she didn't file criminal charges at the time. "You took the money, didn't you?" he asked, prompting gasps in the courtroom. But Ventura remained calm. "I took it to survive. To escape." The defense has also leaned heavily on character witnesses. Several former girlfriends and business partners testified that Combs was generous, professional, and respectful, and that they never witnessed inappropriate behavior. However, under cross-examination, many of those same witnesses admitted they were not present during the events described by the victims. Some had financial ties to Combs, weakening their credibility. One of the most tense moments in court came when the prosecution accused Combs' team of tampering with potential witnesses. Judge Kevin Castell responded by issuing a stern warning and temporarily restricting Combs' communications from inside court premises. There have also been fierce debates over admissible evidence. The defense objected to certain past allegations that were never criminally charged, claiming they would prejudice the jury. But prosecutors argued successfully that the alleged pattern of behavior was central to their case. In a rare move, Judge Castell allowed limited use of prior civil complaints to show motive, intent, and method of operation. Public reactions and courtroom atmosphere. Each day, the courthouse has been surrounded by a mix of media, fans, activists, and protesters. Some supporters of Combs still insist he is being targeted for his success and fame. Others hold signs saying, "Believe victims and justice for Cassie." Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere has shifted dramatically. In early weeks, some jurors appeared skeptical. But following the testimonies of Cassie, Mia, and others, observers noted a clear change in demeanor. Furrowed brows, emotional reactions, and intense note-taking. Legal analysts say that while the defense has scored minor points, the prosecution's case remains dominant due to the coherence and consistency of victim testimonies. Where it's headed. With closing arguments approaching, legal experts predict that the jury could begin deliberations within weeks. If convicted on the most serious charges, federal sex trafficking and racketeering, Combs could face decades in prison. The prosecution has hinted at potential additional charges tied to financial crimes and further obstruction. Meanwhile, Combs' defense team has filed multiple motions for mistrial, all of which have been denied. In the words of one CNN legal analyst, this isn't just about one man's guilt. It's about whether the justice system can finally hold a megastar accountable. For decades, Diddy was a cultural juggernaut. He founded Bad Boy Records, launched the careers of the notorious B.I.G., Maze, and Faith Evans, and redefined hip-hop entrepreneurship. With fashion lines, liquor brands, and $1 billion net worth, he represented the gold standard of hip-hop moguldom. But the trial has laid bare a legacy tainted by exploitation and control. Sponsors, brand partners, and even longtime collaborators have begun distancing themselves. Ciroc and De Leon Tequila, two of Diddy's most lucrative brand endorsements with Diageo, were suspended indefinitely. Revolt TV, a music and culture platform he founded, announced it would undergo leadership restructuring to ensure accountability and integrity. Streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music added disclaimers or quietly demoted Diddy's content in curated playlists. BET and MTV, which once honored him with awards and tributes, declined to comment and have since removed Diddy-focused features from their websites. The dismantling of Diddy's empire has sent a message louder than any verdict. In this era, fame no longer guarantees immunity. Voices amplified. For the victims, speaking out was an act of courage, and their bravery has already begun to inspire others. In the weeks following the testimonies of Cassie Ventura and other women, hotlines across the U.S. reported surges in calls. The National Sexual Assault Hotline noted a 43% spike in outreach, many of them from individuals citing the Diddy trial as their motivation to finally seek help. Social media has also become a battleground for truth and justice. The hashtag Surviving Diddy began trending globally, echoing the movement that followed the R. Kelly documentary. On TikTok and Instagram, survivors of workplace harassment, domestic abuse, and coercive relationships began sharing their stories, often using the phrase, "If Cassie can speak, so can I." Influencers and celebrities alike, including Jamila Jamil, Kerry Washington, and even former Bad Boy artists, called for industry-wide accountability. As one survivor posted, "The fall of Diddy is a warning shot to anyone who thinks silence can be bought forever." The trial has sparked investigations into other music industry figures who operated in close proximity to Combs. Federal sources confirmed to Rolling Stone that subpoenas have been issued for financial and communication records from multiple entertainment companies linked to Combs' business operations. Meanwhile, advocacy groups like Time's Up, Color of Change, and #Mute the Mogul are calling for structural reforms, including mandatory third-party HR systems for music labels and production houses, independent watchdog committees to oversee artist welfare, greater protections for women in male-dominated creative industries. Record labels, once notorious for prioritizing profits over people, are suddenly under the microscope. The cultural debate, redemption or exile. Not everyone is convinced that cancellation is the answer. Some cultural critics argue that the justice system should be allowed to run its course and warn against mob mentality. Others question why it took so long for consequences to materialize when allegations have circulated for years. But for many, this trial represents a long overdue shift, a movement away from idol worship toward accountability, no matter how famous the individual. As The Atlantic noted in a recent op-ed, Diddy was the American dream turned nightmare, proof that money, power, and talent cannot excuse predation. The verdict and the road ahead. At the time of this writing, closing arguments are underway. A verdict is expected within the next few weeks. If convicted, Sean Combs could face 30 years to life in federal prison. If acquitted, civil lawsuits and reputational ruin will likely continue to follow him. But beyond the fate of one man, the Diddy trial has already rewritten the rules for an entire industry. The music world and the American public are left to grapple with the deeper questions it has raised. How many careers were sacrificed to protect a powerful man's image? How many victims stayed silent out of fear or survival? And how do we prevent this from happening again? Whatever the final outcome, one thing is clear, the trail of Sean Combs may have begun in luxury and fame, but it now ends in a courtroom in full view of a nation demanding truth, justice, and change.